Merry Christmas. This video is right at the last minute, but it's something that I've had on my heart. Um, and I want to talk about the symbols of Christmas and how we should see them. Now, before anyone even starts, right up front, I don't care if Christmas is legit or if it came from a pagan holiday or where its roots come from. It doesn't matter because it's not about where it started or what the world sees. It's about what the individual uses it for. That's what I'm here to talk to you about is how should we as Christians see Christmas. So there's some common religious symbols. Of course, you know, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, the nativity, angels, the star, etc. But how much thought do we put into the season? How much thought do we actually put into these symbols themselves? I know every single Christian can put, a reason to each of these symbols, or can say what they mean. But how much do we actually apply that to ourselves? And then further, I've heard some breakdowns about some other pretty common Christmas symbols, like candy canes representing the shepherd's crook and the protection and the care and things like that. But my question is, why not look at everything through the lens of a Christian life? Why not use every symbol that has been adopted for Christmas, whether it's ours or secular, doesn't matter. Why not use every symbol as a way to remind us what the season is really about? I mean, honestly, the Christmas season is kind of it's a time for us as Christians to really pinpoint and refocus on what's really important in our lives every day of the year. But we choose Christmas time because, or we celebrate so heavily Christmas time and Jesus' birth at Christmas, which I know it's probably not the day of it, but we choose this time to celebrate, to pinpoint and refocus our lives. Kind of the same reason that we do Easter, to refocus ourselves on the sacrifice Jesus made for us. So to that end, I want to look at some of the most common symbols that we see every Christmas that we don't ever pay attention to, but that are so easy for us to get lost in that we lose the entire meaning of Christmas altogether. So what are the most common symbols we see? Well, first of all, we celebrate Christmas in the wintertime. Again, may not have been when Jesus was actually born, but we celebrate in the wintertime. And how can we make that mean something? Because the winter, even in most places that are not known for snow and ice and things like that, still the winter gets cold. It gets cold, it gets miserable, it's desolate, it makes us feel alone sometimes. I mean, especially if you're stuck out in it, winter by itself is it's a tough time. The weather is tough to deal with. But one symbol that we see with Christmas a lot is the snow. And the snow kind of comes in and it's almost like a fresh, clean covering. Kind of what we become when we accept Jesus. We just get all the dirty and all the normal and all the day-to-day and the stuff that just piles up all gets covered in this blanket of snow and just becomes beautiful and clean feeling. You know, it's all brand new when there's snow on it. We see the tree, the Christmas tree. By itself is very plain, very, I wouldn't say unappealing, but just it's not special. You see the trees out in the forest all the time. There's just nothing really overly special about them, and especially when you cut it down and bring it in your house. we don't just put a tree in the house and look at that, but the tree kind of represents us as mankind, just unremarkable and plain. We see a lot of times shepherds who are the most common, or at the time of Jesus' birth, were the most common of the common people. They were really looked down on by a lot of people, even in their own economic uh, circles. They just weren't respected people. But then we see the decorations on the Christmas tree. Going back to the tree, we see the decorations, the ornaments. We start to see not what we see in each other, but what God sees in us. We see this beautiful, um, you know, all these different, all these different shapes and colors, and some sparkle and some are flat, and every tree is unique. Every tree is its own, even year to year. From one year to the next, this tree is not going to look the same way. It's, you know, the ornaments are going to be in different places, and it's always new. And then we go to the lights. We see the lights on this tree, and it represents the light of Jesus shining through us. And there's a whole lot of tree that's not lit, but there's a whole lot of it that becomes so much more beautiful because of these just different little twinkling lights going through it. We see a lot of times on the top of the tree, we'll see an angel. Ours has a top hat, which is a little different, but I like it. But a lot of times, you know, you see angels on top of the tree, which symbolizes the protection, the presence of God and His protecting angels in our lives. Or another common tree topper is a star, which in itself represents Jesus, the light of hope for the world. So let's move on to something else. Let's go to the nativity. First, the center of every nativity is always an infant Jesus. Now, why a baby? Well, let me back up. The center is Jesus, and it's an infant Jesus. But let's look at Jesus' history before he was born as a human. Let's go back and look at the Son before his name was Jesus, when he was, you know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We tend to forget that Jesus existed since before time, before the beginning. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit have just always been there. So we look at Jesus, and we got to remember, when the earth was formed, when everything was created, that happened through Jesus. As the events of history played out in the Old Testament and things like that, Jesus had a hand in all that. Jesus was part of the Trinity that rules, is part of the Trinity that created and made the rules for everything. He's all powerful. He is omnipotent, omniscient. He's everywhere. He knows everything. He's got this power and this ability since before time began. And yet, 2,000 years ago, we see him come to earth as a baby, as the most helpless and powerless among us. He relied on Mary and Joseph and the people in his community to keep him safe, to raise him, to teach him as he grew. So you've got this all-powerful being in heaven that lays down everything. His power, his position, his superiority, lays down everything and becomes not just a human but a baby, and has to be raised from that and protected from there. Then we see Joseph. Joseph is a symbol of radical obedience. This is a man whose fiancée shows up one day and says, "Hey, by the way, I'm pregnant." And all of a sudden Joseph is in this spot where he realizes that, number one, he doesn't get to have the experience with his wife that he was anticipating. Number two, word's going to get out, and he's going to be ridiculed. He's going to have to face the court of public opinion about what's happened. And then three, he's got to face them and tell them, oh, no, no, no. She wasn't unfaithful to me. It's God's child. And I'm sorry. Even in that day, I mean, we know what he was facing when he said that. So Joseph had to choose in the face of all these things that he knew was going to be difficult. He had to choose to stick around and be the father of Jesus. Then we see Mary. Now, Mary was in a position where she had to believe and have faith that it was God's child inside of her. And it would have been very easy for Mary to fall into a why me? Or why do bad things happen to good people? Now, if she didn't believe that this child was the Son of God, then that's exactly where she could have wound up. I am a good person. I've done what I should. I have lived as righteous a life as a human can, and now this happens to me, and I'm going to be ridiculed, and I'm going to be called bad things, and people are not going to believe that, I am a virgin, but I'm pregnant. It's just not. It just doesn't happen, and so it's an absolute case of an opportunity for somebody to pick up that why do bad things happen to good people attitude, but then look what comes from it. So when we are in that situation, when we are in situations where bad is happening to us, just think ahead to what might come of it. I'm gonna start preaching on something else if I'm not careful. Go back and we look at the manger. Jesus wasn't just born a baby and a human and put down all of his power and position, but he was literally born in a barn, a borrowed barn. And he was laid in a food trough because he didn't even have a bed where he was born. The King of Kings, the Lord of everything, was born among the animals and laid in their food dish. That's the most humble beginning that I can imagine. And then what's another symbol we see of Christmas is gifts. Why do we give gifts to each other? We give gifts to each other because it's traditional and because we love each other. But let's rethink it. We were given the most amazing gift. The most amazing set of events were put in motion the day Jesus was born. And it led up to the perfect gift. The only gift that really matters. And so when we're giving gifts this Christmas, let's remember that we're giving gifts and to commemorate the gift that was given to us. And then let's go on to some other things that you may not think really relate to a spiritual connection over the holidays. But let's go into some other things like, a lot of people like to get into the hot cocoa around Christmas time. They like to sit in front of the fireplace and join up with each other and family. So how can we relate hot cocoa and a fireplace to the story of Jesus and to the reason for the Christmas season? Well, think about it. You sip that hot cocoa and you get just a warm, comforting feeling inside. It's just warm all the way down, and it kind of brings you back to childhood, and it brings you back to simpler times, and you can just almost feel a change, a shift, and a safety. Same with the fireplace. It's warm, it's safe. You walk in in the cold, and there's a fire burning. The first place you want to go is to the mantle, sit down in front of the fireplace and warm yourself up, knock the cold off. We tend to gather with family. Well, family might seem kind of obvious, but it goes beyond just those related to you. It's a sense of community, and it becomes important on holidays to gather with family, and we should carry that weight to every day and to not just our blood family, but our community around us and the family that we choose in our friends, the family given to us in our churches. And we should create that kind of, we should take that kind of feeling and need to be with family and try to live it out every day of our lives. My family tends to do matching pajamas every year. My mom will typically get everybody a set of matching pajamas, and we'll all wear them and put them on, things like that. And that there, it speaks to, and it can speak to a sense of belonging. Not just that you have a community or that you have a family, but you literally belong there. That is your place in the world. And that they will always welcome you, no matter what's happening, no matter what's going on. And so that matching pajama thing that a lot of families do, it just use that and see that as your sense of belonging, and understand that extends not beyond the pajamas and beyond the immediate family, but that you have a place that you belong. And if you don't, there are places out there that are willing to welcome you in, and there are churches that want you to belong. Frosty the Snowman. How in the world am I going to relate Frosty the Snowman to the birth of Jesus Christ? Well, here you go. In the song and in the movie, the kids are outside playing. They make themselves a snowman. They find this hat. They don't know it's magic, but they find this hat. They put it on him, and Frosty comes to life. Now that is childlike imagination at its finest. He comes to life, and he's bigger than life. And what does he do? He doesn't turn around and tell them that they're, just kids and whatever, and you don't know. He runs and he plays with them, and there's just such a childlike fantasy and wonder throughout this story of Frosty. And that's what that's part of what Jesus was saying is maintain your childlike wonder, believe the unbelievable, because that's who he is. And it's an opportunity to remember when Jesus said to the disciples, "Let the children come to me," because when you become like one of them, then you can receive me. Christmas often brings out the goodwill in people, more so than other times of the year. And we see that goodwill, and we can see that in this time of year, which we celebrate as the birth of Jesus, and the Western world understands that the Christmas season is rooted in birth of Jesus. That has become a major theme, whether they believe it or not. That's become a major theme and a major symbol of Christmas. And we see the goodwill start to come out in people, and that just should remind us that there is a transforming power that Jesus gave to us, that he brought to us, and is now available. And that goodwill can become not just a seasonal thing, but a part of you and part of how you live. And then a lot of kids like to leave cookies and milk out for Santa Claus. How do cookies and milk relate? Well, we were given a gift. And, the whole, with Santa Claus, he brings gifts to the children. They leave cookies and milk as a thank you. As you're welcome here, and we appreciate what you brought us, and we just want to say thank you. So we need to remember that. We need to live out that cookies and milk on a daily basis, to remember the gift that Jesus brought to us, and to thank him, to not take for granted what he's done. And then that brings us to Santa. What does Santa show us at Christmas that we can relate to Jesus? Well, he's the gift giver. He is the ongoing symbol of giving. So not only can we take that and remember that Jesus' gift is ongoing, and it's always new, and it's always for us, even when we fail, but then it also reminds us that we should have that spirit of gift giving, that spirit of of reaching out and trying to do good by others. So Santa really becomes a symbol of not only what we get, but what we should be to other people. And then the last thing that I want to mention is mistletoe. Mistletoe may not seem like it fits here, and it took me a minute to kind of figure out how it does fit in. But oftentimes, when you're watching the movies, what you see with mistletoe is the one individual will have a hat or will be holding mistletoe over their head. They will be inviting a certain person or the group of people or whatever. They will be inviting them into a closer and more intimate moment and situation. And so the mistletoe is what we need to adopt. We need to approach Jesus holding that mistletoe. We need to tell him every day, all the time, hey, I'm not just saying you're welcome. I am giving you every possible sign that I can that I want you in my life. And we need to live that. We need to do that. We need to paste that mistletoe to our forehead so that Jesus can always see it and always, okay, you are inviting me in every day. And he'll accept. He will. He said he would. So again, like I said, this Christmas, be with your family, love them, and choose to make every symbol a symbol of what we're really celebrating, and Jesus, and how it relates, and just use it to pinpoint and reinvigorate what you know is true of Jesus in the first place. Get yourself centered, and then live it the rest of the year. You guys have a blessed Christmas. Now turn this thing off. Be with your families. And love you guys. Merry Christmas.